Hello and welcome back to Project No Buy. In today's video, I have a small triumph to share, as well as my Halloween costume plans. So the triumph is actually the fact that my Halloween costume plans are a lot better than last year's. And I guess it's kind of both a triumph and a failure, because I know that I said last year that I was planning to rewear that particular costume for years on end. And in fact, that's not what's going to happen. And I probably should have seen that coming from the get-go. Luckily now I will see that coming and probably will have a reasonable plan of rotation of Halloween costumes. And I don't really want to get something new or new to me every single year, but I realistically can't plan for the future in terms of what my Halloween costume needs will be. And so there generally always is a Halloween family show at my job where it's not mandatory to wear costumes. Plenty of people just show up in the regular concert black or less formal concert black, family show black dress code. But a lot of people do wear costumes, and oftentimes, or sometimes I guess, friends or section mates or colleagues will expect or invite you to partake in the wearing of a costume with them, or when you interact more with people, you'll talk about costumes and share ideas, and certain things will seem like funny or good ideas, and that's kind of what happened this year. And I wanted to talk about it because of my video last year about it, what I actually did last year, and how drastically different it is in a way that represents positive growth, I think. And actually last year, I do remember, because I spent quite a bit of money on that Halloween costume. And I even got a comment about like, oh, who the F spends $250 or whatever it was, $200 some on a costume, and this is a mess. It looks hideous. Or, maybe that's not the exact wording, but I do remember it was a comment in that tone of like, who the F does that? Like, that's so much money. And yeah, it was. And I had visions of wearing this for long-term performances. A year later, I'm not doing the performances yet. I may have started posting on YouTube, successfully having hopefully a long-term routine there of my one video a week at least, and will be on the path to doing public performances. But once again, it's kind of silly to think that I could plan my public performance outfits before they were actually happening. And all those needs might change, the year that they actually start happening. Next year, the year after, whatever it is, I might be a different size. I might have different goals. I might play different music. Who knows? Like, the needs might change. Same with the Halloween costume. And so I don't have any such lofty goals of re-wearing the same thing over and over again. Although my kids have worn the same thing for the past 3 years, and they've been passing the same thing down. They have princess dresses, I guess, I can tell you. And whenever we go out, we do have that as the one kind of costume option, and they've been happy with it. So there's been no need to change that routine. The day will come, I'm sure, that they will want to wear something in particular, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. My approach this year was to not only choose the costume strategically, but also to shop strategically. And so I made a video about ThredUp a while back about how I was humbled by how they valued some of my clothes, or actually said that some of my clothes were not able to be sold despite one of them being a Tibby pair of jeans. And so it was like, hey, like, this is a brand that I think is on your list of approved brands, and it's an expensive and kind of sought after brand, maybe. And this is the item you're saying you can't sell? Like, make it make sense. But anyway, I did end up with a payout of about $96 for the items I sent in. And so I did look on there to thrift some of the items for my Halloween costume. I was initially going to go in person, but life has just gotten a little bit hectic and overwhelming in terms of getting out of the house for an errand like that and being something that's difficult to spend time on, and also honestly not a super desirable way to spend any of the free time that I might have to go out of the house like that. So I did make an online order, which is something I'm trying not to do so much of, but I made an online order using my ThredUp credits and purchased a pair of leggings and a hat for around $5 each. So the total was like $11, and I then cashed out the remaining ThredUp balance so that I would not shop for anything else. And the plan for my costume is to be a viola goblin. And this is a very much, if you know, you know, but enough of my colleagues do know for it to be funny. And even if you don't know, it does look like a kind of comical costume, because basically I'm going to be a parody of the Cello Goblin, who has kind of a large Instagram presence. I might be able to put a video of his here, and you will see what I mean, where a lot of the costume is actually the performance. And so he does have printed pants. Sometimes they're leggings, but they're always some kind of like outlandish print, some kind of shirt. Sometimes it's a outlandish blouse, but sometimes it's just an oversized t-shirt, which is what I'm planning to do. And then usually this kind of Robin Hood style cap. And so I just figured I'll make a facsimile of this with a regular black sun hat or whatever. You know, I can kind of shape it. We'll see. And that's what I'm gonna wear. And the integral parts is that I'm going to play my spare viola, so not my good instrument, but I'm going to play my spare viola and put some kind of square post-it notes on it so that I imitate the setup he has here, and attach a kazoo to my scroll so I can imitate, again, the performance aspect where he's bouncing the bow on the strings and kazooing away. And again, this is going to be funny for the people who know, and it will be an acceptable costume for the people who don't know. You know, like, it's not something I wear every day. The outlandish leggings, I think the ones on ThredUp are actually Christmas gingerbread Hawaiian print. And so, you know, what could be more perfect? And also, what could be an item that's less likely to sell otherwise? You know, like, who is going to buy these if not for some kind of ridiculous goblin costume? And this is a costume I could see myself re-wearing, maybe not consecutive years, but I do think that every few years I could be the viola goblin. I mean, this is a more likely to re-wear costume than my other one that for those of you who didn't see last year's videos, I got 2 Juicy Couture sweatsuits, and I got 3 pieces out of the 4, you know, top and bottom, in a thrifted bundle, I think off of Mercari. And so, you know, 3 of these pieces were from the 90s or whenever they were popular, and then I had to get 1 pair of pants new, but they were the black pair that I thought I was going to rewear a whole lot. And I haven't reworn them since, you know, spoiler alert, you know, that was a bad decision. I also got some accessories on Poshmark Mercari, you know, thrifting online, so like the sunglasses, the Dooney and Burke purse, you know, the vintage aesthetic of that, and I carried around a little stuffed animal dog, you know, it's like a la Paris Hilton kind of style. Did the makeup with the concealer lips and stuff like that, bronzer, and it was fun, you know, it was a good costume. The people who appreciated it really appreciated it. Again, you know, like, they were saying I could be a Real Housewife of Omaha kind of thing, and that was kind of fun, funny to be effectively labeled in that way. And honestly, like, my lifestyle is probably, I've actually never seen any of the Real Housewife shows, so maybe not, but like, I am kind of a housewife and I live in the suburbs, and you know, maybe the shoe fits. I don't know. Maybe not the drama, but I don't even know what I'm agreeing to be right now, but it felt funny. It felt kind of apropos at the time, even if it's not. But anyway, so we went from being a Real Housewife to a viola goblin, and we went from a costume that cost over $200 to a costume that cost $11, and with maybe equal chances for reusability in the future of my Halloween costume life. And I guess in a practical sense, it didn't actually cost me any tangible money, since I didn't know how much I would get from ThredUp resale. And so it didn't have real effect on the budget for this month in that way. So I guess if anything, you know, if there's any kind of message from this video, is that thrifting your Halloween costume is still the option I would recommend. I would definitely recommend trying to spend less than I did the first year, and not having unrealistic ideas of maybe re-wearing your costume in years to come. And I guess, you know, bonus point to selecting your costume with that in mind, right? So choosing to be a viola goblin made it very easy to thrift a costume. In fact, it made it more difficult to buy a costume new because of the nature of what I was trying to emulate. And so if you can choose a costume that's dependent on maybe personality or behavior characteristics and not on the actual clothes, then I think the odds of being able to thrift enough of the approximation of the outfit to convey what you need to through clothes, and then act the rest of the way. You know, maybe that's the golden ticket for Halloween going forward. I don't know. The other costumes I thought about, this is maybe honorable mention territory. I've also thought about using the clothes I have in ways that could be costumified, so the classic add a pair of ears and you're a mouse, you can just wear gray. I could wear the sweater even in black leggings and have ears and whiskers painted on. I could be a mouse, wear all black, you could be a cat. I have a bright blue sweater that I could be a blueberry, attach a green paper leaf to my head, be a cute piece of fruit. If you have black or yellow clothes, you could use tape to be a bumblebee, tape stripes on in either black or yellow, whatever color you don't have. I think one of the other musicians actually used tape to stripe a suit with white stripes on a black suit. And you could be a number of things with that kind of outfit. So either using what you have or thrifting things cheaply, also selecting things that might not be useful to other people. Thrifting is a bonus, I guess. Extra points for that, maybe. And I guess the spirit of fun is maybe more at the forefront of my experience this year compared to last year. And so I guess I just wanted to share that small triumph. And it is fascinating to me, even looking back 1 year ago, to how the experiences of certain occasions have radically shifted. I know I didn't really share Christmas and birthdays from the year prior, like year 2023. I did share a haul, I think, from those holidays, but I didn't really share the experience leading up. And the experience of 2024 was still in the realms of overconsumption, in my opinion. And it does kind of make me hopeful that, at least for 2025, I have a chance at triumphing, at changing my habits, at having built up enough values or built up enough motivation to act in accordance to values maybe that I already had. I don't know, but I do have hope now, observing how Valentine's Day came and went without huge purchase incident. And, I don't know that huge purchases were made in 2024, but I did buy 5 lip glosses that were about $100. So that's pretty huge. And this year that didn't happen. Mother's Day, likewise, I used that to buy some clothes last year. This year that didn't happen. And now Halloween was a big thrifting extravaganza last year. And this year I thrifted 2 things using credit on a platform that I resold clothes on and cashed out the rest. And that was it, $11 and we're out the door. So hopefully Christmas and birthday this year will be similarly progress representative. And I will come on here with tales of joy and triumph at having stuck to a budget, maybe a number of items, maybe a value-forward philosophy for Christmas and birthday spending for the rest of this year and the year to come. I would love to hear what you're doing for Halloween, whether it's costume-based or not costume-based. Share in the comments below. I would love to read about it. And with that, I will say bye for now and see you in the next one.